And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to what we refer here as the infamous X-rated hour of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics. A's Fan Radio live from La Estrellita, the legally 5150 Corporal Wright-Bill asshole and the boss man coming at you on another beautiful Thursday night down here a few quick strolls away from beautiful Lake Merritt and downtown Oakland. It is my honor and my privilege to bring on a guest that been working on this, I guess, a little bit last year and a half. Timing's been a little bit off because, of course, she's been busy writing a book on her growing up some time beings during the time that both her father and her uncle were involved in their tie-ins with the Oakland Athletics. It's my honor and my privilege, ladies and gentlemen, to bring on the niece of Charlie Finley and the daughter of Carl Finley, who was the A's manager during the time of Charlie's ownership of the team. Ladies and gentlemen, Nancy Finley, and of course we are also joined by a longtime good close friend of the show at A's Fan Radio, and he's also helping Nancy with writing the book, our good friend Chris Diabetti. Nancy, welcome to A's Fan Radio.
Thank you for having me.
Boss, you want to go and open the questions up?
Oh, man, I don't even know where to even start, though. There's just so much history that this lady right here would know. Like, I mean, she's forgotten more about the A's, you know, than we'll ever know, though, man. So I'm just really honored and privileged. Thank you for coming on, though. This is an underground show. It's for underground fans, and, you know, it's really special to have you on here, though, especially you being connected to pretty much the first identifiable thing of Oakland besides the Black Panthers, but as far as the sports world goes, the Oakland A's are the first identifiable thing. So just tell me a little bit what it was like during those years, you being young and just seeing just the world change here in Oakland.
It was wonderful. To me, that was just my life. That I thought everyone had the same thing in a way, because I didn't really socialize with a lot of kids my age. I went to school, then I went to the Coliseum. And just knowing how we were winning, after a while, there comes a time when you just think you're going to go on to the next year. And, you know, we're there. Sure, it's going to happen again. It was great. It was great. And for me, it was also a family reunion. Because for the championships, it meant that my family was going to fly out. Other members, too. They were going to fly out, and we were all going to celebrate.
So, well, for Oakland fans, it was a World Series year. For the Finleys, it was a family reunion at the Coliseum.
Exactly. I got to see family I hadn't seen in a while because I'm not from this area. So our family got to come out, and it was just all celebration, nonstop celebration. It was wonderful.
So you guys are from the Midwest originally, right? Chicago?
I'm from Texas.
You're from Texas.
Originally, the Finleys were from Alabama.
Okay.
And then we went to, my father went to Texas because of college, and then Charlie went up to a suburb of Chicago in Indiana.
Okay.
But they all maintained a connection, and it was wonderful to have all of that come together because we had other family in the Midwest that didn't work in baseball, but they were family. So they came out and celebrated with us because of what we did.
So it was kind of like just drinking water, though, just to come to the Oakland Coliseum. You know, we hang out, we watch the A's, and we watch them win and just kick tail all throughout the year, and especially in October. Hey, it was just like a run-of-the-mill thing, right?
Oh, yes. In fact, end of August, we had to start preparing. Back then, we had to have tickets printed, even if we didn't know for sure, because it wasn't computerized.
Oh, yeah.
I came across, the other day, a 1971 A's World Series ticket. Because we had to have those printed.
That's it, and they didn't make it till 72. But
exactly. So in a way, and then seeing that in print, I remember thinking, "Oh my gosh, we better make it. I don't want this paper to go to waste." But but also you could not change the price because what's on the ticket was the price.
Nancy, talk about, wasn't the operation so tight and so small that during the playoffs it was you and your dad basically running the ticket office? How did that work?
Well, I remember in '73, even though I was middle school, I was brought in to help with playoff sales, ticket sales, because we had to do it in a private location. We never did it in the regular in the ticket office. So, and we didn't hire through an employment agency, not for that kind of thing. So we had our regular ticket office, which wasn't many people, and then Dad and I and 2 other people had a secret location where we had all the playoff tickets and then World Series tickets, hopefully. And we would all day open letters with checks or money orders. And they were all sent to the P.O. box Monty Moore would mention during his broadcast. And I remember hearing him say, "Oh, if you're interested, send a check to," and that's where Dad and I would go early in the morning and pick up bags. So it was exciting because I knew how we were going to make it. It was just sort of like a state of mind. We were going to make it, and we did. But looking as I got older, I could understand how difficult that really is.
Sounds like it's difficult because, you know, in today's world, we got the internet, we got Twitter, we got apps on our phone where we can get tickets just at a drop of a dime. And the way you're saying, you know, you guys were real small knit, as, you know, Chris just mentioned. It must have been real tough just to be hustling and bustling. You guys are not at, you know, I guess a regular location like we are accustomed to now. I mean, that kind of must have been hectic for you. You said middle school, you were pretty young.
Oh, yes. Well, Dad kept, I'm an only child, and Dad was always my best friend, and he was very protective. And whatever he had me do, it was fun. I was treated with respect, and I was allowed to be in on it. And because he raised me alone from the age of 12 as a bachelor, he had sole custody. So I came out here from Texas, and he was running the A's and a bachelor, and Charlie said, you know, drop what you're doing and go get her.
Nancy, was he protective with you when it came to the players, too?
Oh, yes. Yes.
How
and,
so?
Well, I didn't think of this till I was older, but the players weren't allowed to use swear words in front of Finley kids.
Yeah.
I
think getting the ball player not to cuss is almost as impressive as winning a World Series, you know? I mean,
yes, because I could see the difference.
Yeah.
When I was older. But, and I don't know how they arranged to do that. But Dad he was very protective also because we had kidnap threats. It was the 70s, Patty Hearst, and then apparently Zodiac.
Oh, yeah, out here.
Yeah, unless he went to the Coliseum on a regular basis, I didn't have a problem. I mean...
How did you guys hear about the kidnap threats, and who was threatened?
Oh, you mean...
Who with the Finleys? Was it Charlie that was threatened?
Oh, yes. He apparently was the #1 target by the SLA when Marcus Foster was assassinated because they couldn't find Charlie. And my dad received this information from the FBI. So I had to be kept out of school for the rest of the year and homeschooled.
Hey.
So, speaking of your dad, a lot of people, they're more familiar with your Uncle Charlie. How much of an impact did Carl have, and ultimately not just on the 3 teams that won the World Series from 72 to 74, how much of an impact did your dad have ultimately on the teams that would obviously come to play in later years, per se, the end of the 70s when Ricky and all them came up with during the Billy Ball era, and then ultimately when the Haas family took over the team?
Actually, Charlie depended on Dad throughout the entire era, but mostly after 75, when he was going through issues with Bowie Kuhn and the divorce and everything, he actually gave Dad his proxy to just attend the owners' meetings on his own and vote, because Charlie just decided he wasn't going to go to those meetings anymore. And then when the team was purchased, Dad was asked to stay as a VP and mentor. And I brought something for you to sort of highlight that.
Okay.
This is Dad, Andy, and that's Roy, who was a brother-in-law of the Haas family.
Nice. So
Yes.
Andy Dolish, Andy Dolish, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, Andy Dolish.
Yes.
Great
Wonderful.
person, ladies and
Wonderful.
gentlemen. Got a chance to meet him a couple times.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I remember when he first came out here. That was January '81. In fact, we made it to the playoffs in '81, and that was our scouted team. People say, oh, you know, how wasn't it tough to have such a bad team in the late '70s? Truth is, we were rebuilding the team, but Dad and Charlie didn't want to make it public. So, I don't know. They were just tired of being nitpicked.
I think
Right.
the roster was filled with a bunch of guys. It was like that second wave of talent that Charlie had scouted. You had Mike Norris, and you had Ricky Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
You had people that
Keel.
Matt Keel, you're right, Rick Langford, that whole pitching staff, Brian Kingman. You had Dwayne Murphy.
Yeah. So we exploded in '81.
And so that was a team that was building during the 77, 78, 79 years when the team was admittedly very bad. But and then you had the team managed by Billy Martin, which was Charlie Finley's last great hire before he sold the team at the end of 1980. So I think Carl was still in the front office with this new Haas regime, but Nancy could remember all those players playing for the '81 team. They were all in the minors as the team was sort of rebuilding in those late 70s years. So.
In fact, when we were in the playoffs for '81, you didn't have Charlie and the family behind the dugout at that time. So I remember sitting there, and I actually wanted to walk down and tell Billy Martin what to do. Because I could see mistakes he was making. And I knew I couldn't get away with that. Dad would be
So you were
furious.
watching the game almost like Charlie would watch the game.
Right.
Yeah.
And I could see what he was doing wrong. But who was I to say anything?
Right.
But I could have made it better.
So when you talk about the players, because I've seen documentaries, obviously I'm 32 years old, so I only know so much. I mean, my first knowledge is the Haas era, late 80s and all that.
Yeah.
But when I see documentaries of Rebels of Oakland and I see stuff about the dynasty on Comcast, from your just vantage point, 'cause I know you were pretty much guarded and protected.
Oh, yeah.
Just tell me about stories you heard, or between your dad and your uncle, just about the players, because I've just heard some of the most wildest and craziest stories that I can't believe about the mustache gang of the early '70s, mid-'70s.
You about to say the Mustang Gang? What the hell?
The mustache. I've been having a few beers. Excuse me, though.
AFR Radio exclusive.
We would have paid them to grow beards, and we could have gotten away with it. I don't think that would have worked. Yes, but that was by the way, we never had an ad agency. We never paid for an ad agency. We were our own ad agency, and it was just Charlie wasn't afraid to do something controversial because that's how he kept people interested. But he always bounced it off of someone. I overheard him talking to Dad many times. What do you think of? What do you think of? I also overheard Dad say, "I think it's great. Don't put my name with it."
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But Charlie showed up at a restaurant at Jack London Square. He was so excited. He had a prototype of white players' shoes in his trunk.
This is like 1968, 69?
Yes, he was so excited.
So that's when the white shoes were born?
Yes, yes. So these were the shoes he was going to have the players wear. He was so excited.
There's just a lot of stories, I think, about that era. Because that era, is pre-political correctness, and it was when sports went corporate. So teams and ownership could do whatever really the hell they wanted to do. And Charlie's imagination was active. In 1971, he had a thing called Hot Pants Day, and you've probably seen photos, where basically, everyone was, particularly the young women, were invited to show up wearing the shortest shorts they could wear. That wouldn't go over too well today. But in interviewing for the book, we interviewed Ted Robinson, who for a very short time was the announcer, Ted Robinson, for the 49ers. Yeah. He and a former A's announcer and Giants announcer. He was hired in the A's front office, and he praises Nancy's dad, Carl, a million times up and down, because he said Charlie fired him a few times just because, if Charlie was having a bad day, he would kind of turn to whoever was closest.
Well, Charlie fired everybody once in a while. Fired him, rehired him, fired him again.
Right. But then Carl was the one who would come in and sort of smooth things over, rehire them.
In one night.
Either smooth things over with Charlie or just count on the fact that Charlie would fly back to Chicago and forget that it ever happened, which he often did. So a lot of times we interviewed Ted Robinson for the book that will eventually come out, and Ted Robinson swears up and down on behalf of Carl, praising him to high heaven, saying that guy saved my rear end a million times. And one of the stories, real quick, was that one of the things that baseball allowed back then, because it was loosey-goosey. They didn't have the tight control. They weren't as PR conscious. The movie Caligula, I don't know if you ever heard of that.
I know
basically
about the
it's basically an X-rated movie that Penthouse made, but with an A-list cast. It has like Malcolm McDowell and Helen Mirren and all these great stars. They were promoting the movie, and so they sent out Penthouse Pets, which is basically like the Penthouse version of Playboy Playmates, to play softball games against the local sports media. So they called up Ted Robinson, who was in charge of that kind of stuff at the time, and Ted Robinson ran it by Carl, and he said, yeah, sure. So what they had before an A's game, before a Major League Baseball game, were Penthouse Pets in their short shorts playing against the sports writers at a softball game, promoting what was essentially an X-rated movie, and no one ever got in trouble for it. It was.
And we thought we got X-rated here on this show.
And
Holy crap.
There's Ted Robinson right there doing the Niner game on TV. But he was the guy that told us that story. And that was the kind of stuff that happened back then because it was just a different era.
Man, it's so hard to wrap my mind around because we have so much political correctness these days right now. I mean, girls in hot pants. I mean, the women's groups will come out.
Right.
Oh my God, you guys are sexist. Boycott the Oakland A's and
well, this time it would have been the Kansas City A's, boss.
I mean, it's just so crazy. And you think of the ideas that Mr. Finley had. I mean, I believe it was the rabbit coming out of...
Harvey.
Yeah, Harvey.
In Kansas City, too. Harvey had red eyes that would flash.
Right.
And I couldn't look at him when I was little.
He scared you when you were little, right?
Oh, yes. And he'd go around. Oh, yeah.
And for those who aren't aware at home, you had this mechanical rabbit that would pop up out of the behind home plate and give the baseballs to the umpire, which is a chore that the ball boys typically do. And he also had Charlie O the mule that he got from...
Yeah. That was a symbol for me because he got rid of the elephant, right?
Actually, we were given a mule as a gift by the governor of Missouri, not as a mascot, just as a gift, because they love mules. And we were thinking, I remember hearing the family talking about, we should have a new mascot. What should it be? And next thing I know, it's a mule. And so we introduced it. First season of '65 was our first season of it. So we had it for 2 years in Kansas City and then out here for a long time.
And one of the things that Nancy always talks about is, and I think it's overlooked, because people want to focus on the negative of Charlie, but there was so much positive, really. And one of the things, he was like a little kid. He had this new toy, this new mule, and he would take it everywhere with him. And he didn't care who it pissed off. He would ride the mule in the lobby of.
It was banned in one stadium.
Oh, in Chicago, right?
In hot pants,
right.
With protest signs.
The old Comiskey, the old Comiskey.
Yeah, the old Comiskey, the White Sox owner.
What's now a parking lot for new Comiskey?
Right. And so Charlie, just instead of being upset about it or slinking away, he actually hired women to protest in short shorts outside of Comiskey Park, saying, let Charlie play, bring Charlie in. He would bring it into the hotels, lobbies of ritzy hotels. Which
the plaza. It had
Well, I've seen videos of that.
Yeah, he did get it into that stadium. He did a Trojan horse type of thing. He said he was bringing in, supplies, and it was in a trailer. He let it out.
I'm sorry,
no.
He did one thing that I think really A's fans of any era will love, and that's that he loved to tweak the New York Yankees. Because when he bought the Kansas City A's in 1960, for the previous 5 years, the Yankees had used the Kansas City A's as a farm team. They basically broke the law, and they had this conflict of interest where the Kansas City A's would shuttle their best players to the Yankees and kind of propped up that Yankee dynasty.
That's why Roger Maris ended up in New York.
Exactly. Roger Maris was a Kansas City A who was traded to the Yankees when the Yankees wanted him. That's because the ownerships had a cozy off-the-field business deal.
Wow. That book, by the way? There's a book called... Okay, the Kansas City Athletic, the other half of the New York Yankees.
Wow, I need to go get this.
And I don't know the author or anything, but I was so happy he wrote that book, because that book actually leaves off where we begin.
And Charlie really, he comes in and he knows this history that wasn't reported very much at the time. So the first thing he did was he bought a shuttle bus into the Kansas City parking lot and lit it on fire for the media. He lit the bus on fire for the media.
That wouldn't be allowed either.
Right. And because that was his symbol of the days of shuttling the A's players to New York were over. And he also brought in the fence in right field at Municipal Stadium in Kansas City to the exact 295-foot length that they had in Yankee Stadium. And he was arguing that the short porch in Yankee Stadium gave the New York hitters, their left-handed hitters, an advantage. Now that's debatable because both teams played with the same fence, but he missed no opportunity in those early years to tweak the Yankees. And he it was a great moment when in 72 through 74 the A's are the only non-Yankee dynasty ever, and at that moment the Yankees are at their worst moment since the 1910s.
And then
They're at the bottom.
75, we made it
Yeah.
to the play. So in
5 straight years.
in this Coliseum, we won that many games in a row. I mean, that you're a dynasty if you win 3 in a row,
That's
right? 3 World Series.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
We did it.
Now, to kind of piggyback to Harvey the Rabbit, because this is one question I've always had, and maybe you might be the person to finally answer it. I've always heard stories that supposedly Harvey's still buried in the ground at the Coliseum. Is that true? Does someone in the Finley family have it? Who has it? Where is it? Where's Harvey? That's what I would like to know.
I can say this. Dad had the final disposition of Harvey.
Okay.
Dad had control of Harvey. In fact, Dad was in, Charlie told Dad to just see what the new owners wanted to keep. They call it intellectual property.
Yeah.
Okay,
Whatever
that's
that
what Harvey was called. And our orange baseballs, the mascot, they could have had a new mule or whatever. And Dad would tell me they've chosen not to keep such and such. So I know that Harvey was one, not wanted, or not chosen. And the mascot and the orange baseballs. So Harvey is not anywhere at the Coliseum.
Okay. So that's rumor.
Damn you, Dan Wilson, you lied to me.
That rumor is dispelled, but we're talking about mascots and doing things out the box. And you were in middle school. Please tell me about one Stanley Burrell, MC Hammer. You have to tell me about this right now.
Now he's Hammer to me, but I remember when he was Stanley, and I was actually a little jealous because he sat where I sat next to my dad at games. There were times when I would want to go back to the apartment. Hammer was more than willing to sit in my seat, and as an only child, I could tell Dad was getting close to him, and.
So you were getting jealous of MC Hammer.
And I would ask him, can you go and maybe get me a Dr. Pepper or something? And then I would sit there, and Dad would say, you have to give Hammer his seat back. Dad liked it because Hammer was willing to run down to the clubhouse if needed, because, before cell phones and texting, Dad didn't. I couldn't go into the clubhouse with players dressing.
No way.
So, although I did hide in the catacombs a lot and listen to conversations, but Hammer was very. He was endearing. He was part of the family, and I do remember being down in the front office just doing homework, and I overheard him broadcasting. And Dad told Monty, you need to let Hammer try for 1 inning. And I hear this voice on the radio. So it was just like every time I turned around, he was there, and so I was just. He was. Dad and Charlie really liked him. But see, Dad was there all the time, and they had a phone, and Charlie always called. Where Dad sat in the box, Charlie would call, and Charlie would talk to Hammer. And Charlie really liked promoting people. Charlie made me a vice president when I was 16, like Hammer. But Hammer got to keep his. After Charlie went back to Chicago, I was really happy and asked Dad, what happens now? And Dad said, you're not going to be vice president. So
let me ask you this one more thing about Hammer. When the late 80s came or what have you.
90s.
90s.
Yes.
Yeah, 90s. How did it feel for you, knowing him coming from, I guess, a modest background out here in East Oakland, then all of a sudden you're seeing MC Hammer, this big mega star with the big pants and the crazy haircut, doing all those crazy dances.
He was Hammer to me.
He's just
He's
Hammer.
Hammer.
He's Hammer, not MC Hammer, but he's just Hammer, though.
Right.
Well,
He looked the same.
So it just never, that'd be, liking to me, knowing somebody from where they started. Oh, that's just, because that was my favorite guy as a kid. I used to be trying to copy, get the haircut and stuff, though. But for you, it's like.
He's a great person. He was the same, but a great person. In fact, it's like Mrs. Fields' Cookies. She was our ball girl.
Are you serious?
Yes. Yeah. You didn't know that? You know Mrs. Fields was a ball girl for the A's?
Didn't know.
I knew something you didn't. What the? Stop.
Her sister was our part-time switchboard operator, Kathy. And Dad would seat me next to her. And I remember when her younger sister, Debbie Sevier, would come in to the front office. And Dad, she thought she was cute. Everyone did. And Dad was.
You didn't really think too much of her.
No, I didn't. She was older than me. I just remember hearing Dad and Charlie. They liked women. Okay. They appreciated women.
Oh, and, as any red-blooded man would do.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay.
And so I remember hearing Dad talking to Charlie. The next thing I know, they're saying, "Well, wouldn't that be great if we could have the opposite of a bat boy? A ball girl."
Wow.
So they asked her if she had a friend. They always trusted people to recruit someone, not just hire someone and then go out and get a total stranger. They asked her, "Do you have a friend you could bring in?" So she brought in someone named Mary Berry. And then I remember after she left, our AP person, Roy, I don't remember his last name, but he helped her find a job at Marine World.
Oh, Vallejo, okay.
Right. It was actually, I think, in Foster City then.
Oh, Foster City.
And then next thing I know, she's married and has Cookies under her married name.
Miss Fields.
Yeah, and she's wearing an apron on top,
So you got Mrs. Fields and MC Hammer working at the Coliseum at the same time with Reggie Jackson and
Well, Hammer
all those guys.
was a little later. Yeah, because she was there up till 74.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right.
That's just crazy. Just the innovation of Charlie Finley, but then the cool temperament of your dad. Where did Charlie O get that from? Did it come from your grandfather? Where did he get the gumption to just, you know what, I'm just going to stick my foot out there, you know what, if it gets ran over, the hell with it. But then it was kind of like a Law and Order episode where you got the good cop and you got the bad cop.
Dun dun.
Charlie O comes in there, kicking him, you do this, and then your dad, hey, okay, you like a cup of coffee?
How did you know that's exactly how it went? Yes. I mean, that's it. Now, there were a few times when Charlie needed Dad to be the bad guy. Just a few times. But Dad did that in a very subtle way. Dad just wasn't like Charlie. But Charlie, actually, my grandfather was a lot like that.
Why did I think in my mind, grandfather was like that, grandmother was cool, calm, and collective, knew how to just keep everything together. See, she's shaking it. Right now, she's shaking her head like, that's exactly how it went. Sounds a lot like most of our families, though. The women just rein it in, right,
A's Fan Radio here at La Estrellita. We, of course, got Nancy Finley on the show tonight as our guest. I'm going to go ahead and make this be my final question tonight, boss. I don't know if you got anything further, but just my final question is the one thing I want to know big time is especially we all know how myself, boss, and a lot of other fans out there feel about not just the ridiculousness and the crap that Lou Wolf and John Fisher, the current ownership, put us in, plus technically shot and hopped in basically almost 20 years of the same crap. What is the Finley family's take, and your take as well, looking at all the stuff that's gone on the last 20 years with the organization and what you all feel needs to come to a head in order for this team to stay here in Oakland?
Hopefully, the atmosphere of not being happy where you are needs to just go. Just have something you want and concentrate on the game. So if that means a new stadium here at Jacqueline Square, or renovating where they are, but think of the game, and also think of the history of the A's. I would like to see a Finley jersey. I'm glad they have Haas, but when I go there, I don't see Finley.
I've always agreed they should have something up there.
I
It's
agree.
difficult for me to see or not see.
I think it would be cool too to have like the Carl Finley. You know, they have the Bill King booth for Bill King. You know, Carl Finley, they always say he did the work of 10 men when he was running that front office. It'd be great to have the Carl Finley executive offices at the Coliseum for however long they're there.
I can't believe how large the front office is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you know, because I don't know if you guys know, my cousin is an architect, and you know, he's trying to propose a stadium over by Jacqueline, kind of where the Brooklyn Basin project is.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's fallen on deaf ears from the city. And I'm just of the opinion that it definitely is going to take the A's ownership to just throw away this San Jose love, because the court system is really about to slam them in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And the city of Oakland actually have a good idea, have some real ideas, because I just really feel, and it's hard for me to get on my city. I was born here, my father was born here, and
I went to public school.
yeah, you see, you know, so you have a lot of love for this place, just like me. But I really feel the city council is dropping the ball on some of these issues. I really think to make this city grow, to make this downtown into a very attractive place, to kind of rival what San Francisco is, I think the A's are better suited to be down here, because downtown, I don't know if you guys live around here, you know, you guys come around here, downtown has really grown a lot over the last 10 years, and to really capitalize on that, I'm thinking that stadium over near this area is what the doctor ordered. So it's.
And what do we have that San Jose doesn't?
We have waterfront.
That's what helped the Giants. And when you're in San Jose, it's like what's the difference between that and the Midwest?
Oh God, you know, gosh, I don't know, man. Are we related somehow? Because this is what I'm saying. It's no disrespect to San Jose.
Exactly.
But when I go to San Jose, I don't feel like I'm in the Bay Area. I just don't have that feeling. There's something missing there, the conversation.
I've never even had that vibe when I went to Sharks games down there, to be honest with you.
The way you move and groove, you just don't feel it in San Jose. And so in this area, you know, you went to public school here, and I guess my question to you, my last question, what in your book would you guys want to, I guess, express to the public about Oakland, about some of the good aspects, because there's such a dark cloud over Oakland. It's so bad. You're going to get shot. You're going to get robbed, and all this garbage. So,
that can happen in other cities, too. There's a lot to be proud of here, and it's beautiful. But I would say for the city to take the initiative on showing how much it loves its teams, and don't wait for the owners to do it. Take the initiative. You don't have to have, they don't have to do that, all of that. You just take the initiative and put up thank yous or whatever. Yeah.
One of my favorite aspects of Nancy's story is how much her dad, Carl, really embraced Oakland when he moved here. A lot of people could have, a lot of players did live. They lived in Danville or other parts, Walnut Creek, whatever. But Carl lived around Lake Merritt for many years. Sent Nancy to Westlake.
Right over there, Westlake, right?
And then Oakland High.
And then Oakland High, right here on the other side of the freeway. He taught at Laney College in his spare time. There's a lot of things that and when he retired, they stayed in East Bay as well. So they lived in Alameda for a little bit. So there was a lot of Oakland love that he just instilled in Nancy, and he never.
That's where I'm going right now is Laney.
He never, kind of ran to the suburbs like a lot of people did in that era. And I think that's in the Finley and King family to this day.
See, Dad was a high school principal when he joined as a minority owner, and Charlie had just opened his own insurance company up. They didn't have sports background.
But they were so wildly successful.
That's the thing. In fact, I learned that when Dad left the high school, he didn't say why. Because his high school class was looking for him. Well, they wanted to honor him for the class of '62, and they said, we never realized who he was, where he went. And I figured he probably wanted to leave his, doors open, and he probably thought we're doing something crazy, but let's try it. let's go for it. So it might have been just that they were open to trying everything new and going against the grain.
One thing I'd like to add is I really think that Charlie Finley should be in the Hall of Fame. I heard on the radio today.
Amen.
You're here to that.
Yeah, and Carl Finley also.
I mean, you go ahead. I mean, I don't understand why they're not. It's so hard, and you know, we have promotional days all the time. I see you guys wearing the hats. Why is there not a Charlie O hat day? I mean, people line up for all kind of other stuff. You think people would not love rocking those hats? I mean, as I told you before, this is the guy, him and your father, those two gentlemen helped put the Oakland sports scene on the map. Yeah. The first ever Bay Area sports title happened under their watch. And that's something that should be celebrated, not denigrated. And I hate the fact that your uncle especially gets denigrated so bad. Yeah, they say cheapskate, whatever, but you know what? A lot of these owners are cheapskates, so whatever.
I tell people, if you're specific with your complaint, bring it on. I'll debate. But then they go away. Because it's like they're just in some kind of club, like, let's talk bad about Finley. Well, what is it? What is it exactly that's wrong?
So the book, this is my last one. When can we expect the book out? Because I'm definitely want to stick my nose in that thing. I know it's going to be a page turner because I didn't want to ask you all the questions because I think the book is going to tell us a whole lot more. But when can we expect?
Any book out there.
The rough draft, as we were talking about just last night, is just about done. We're going to take probably the month of September and October to do some second interviews, another round. And
I have discovered things along the way, too.
Yeah, and the rewriting process will go between now and the holidays. So,
great.
You know, so.
Looking forward to it. Looking real forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you. It might be too controversial.
Nancy Finley, ladies and gentlemen, also along with Christy Abetti, who's helping her with writing the book. For more information on how you can follow up on what's going on with the book and just to see some of the stuff that Nancy has written up and put up about the history of her at the time, both that her uncle and her father involved in the team, be sure to check out www.oaklandathleticshistory.com. Nancy, it was a pleasure having you on Ace Fan Radio.
Thank you. I loved it.
Thank you so much.
We're
just
thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem, though. Come again, though. Hopefully the A's can represent and kind of follow in the spirit of what your father and your uncle did, and maybe get a World Series title.
Yes.
I mean, there are a lot of similarities to those teams. You know, not a lot of big name stars, but you know, guys played together and stuff, and just making something out of nothing.
Go A's.
Go A's.
And put up that tribute jersey.
Yeah.
When we come back from our final break, ladies and gentlemen, standings